Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi everyone, my name is Logan if you've never been here before, and this is my every book I read in 2023 video. So my goal for this year was to read 35 books and I read 37, but around 13 or 14 were for school. I took one class in the spring semester that required me to read a lot of novels, and then a class in the fall semester that also required me to read a lot of novels. So a lot of my reading, almost half, not exactly half, but almost half was for school. Also, I only have about 10-ish of the actual copies of the books because I get a lot of my books from the library. So I only own about 10 of them. So we're not gonna have a lot to show you. I'm just gonna have to put the cover right here for you. I am like such a believer in the library, so I really don't buy a book unless it's for school or if I've read it before and I really like it and want a copy. Sometimes there's like, there's definitely been times when, literally you can see, I don't know where it's at, but the 12 Dates of Christmas, I bought it a couple Christmases ago because it was on sale and I had never read it before, but that is a few and far between. But let's get into it. So I keep a log in my bullet journal of every book I've read and I give them a rating, and then I have like a little note next to it. And it's kind of crazy like looking back at the books because some of the books that I read at the beginning of the year I like forgot I read this year and was convinced that it was last year that I read these. Yeah. So I started off the year with a book from the library that I got called A Special Place for Women by Lauren Hinkin. And I said the last 100 pages, wow. I still think about this book. I'm really happy that I started off my year with this one. It is just so conceptually interesting and took a lot of turns and definitely out of the realm that I usually read. But I loved A Special Place for Women. I need to give it a reread soon, but I just thought it was so good. So I'm gonna recommend this one. The second book I actually did not own until this lovely Christmas day, but my sister got me the Hunger Games collection for Christmas because I'm always going to the library trying to find these. So the Hunger Games came out when, or the movies came out when I was super young. I think I was in like 3rd or 4th grade. Maybe more like 4th or 5th grade. So I didn't read the books when the movies originally came out, and I saw the first movie before I read the books. And so I saw the other movies in theaters and was like, I'll just wait to read the books until after I've seen all the movies, which is an unpopular thing to do, I know. But I'm now getting around to actually sitting down and reading the books. So I read The Hunger Games. It was my second book of the year, and this is the special edition that my lovely sister got me. And I had been going to the library just for like I think I tried so many times when I was home last year to get them, and they were just never there. Finally got my hands on one from the library, read it, and then it took me ages to find Catching Fire. Then I eventually found that, and you'll see because I read that later in the year. The third book I read was for class, and it was called How to Think Like Shakespeare. I thought this book was really insightful. It was definitely the book that like guided the class, and this was a Shakespeare class that I took, obviously. So it was a definitely good like introductory book to read. If you're into Shakespeare, I found it really interesting. There were a lot of really cool passages in it, I remember. There's not a lot of textbooks that I really enjoy, but I did enjoy this one. The fourth book or play that I read was A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, and this one was for class. I wrote that I felt really whimsical while reading this. I was familiar with A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think I had read excerpts of it growing up, but I had never read the play in its entirety. So this was a great read if you're into Shakespeare. There's gonna be a lot of Shakespeare in the next couple of ones because this is like in the depths of me taking my Shakespeare course for class, or my Shakespeare course for college. I gave this one 3 stars. The fifth one is actually kind of a fun story. I feel like I've maybe talked about this before, but I had the privilege of going on a study abroad trip to Denmark with one of my classes, and I was in the library before I went back to school, my home library, and I was walking around and I saw this book like sitting on this table, and it's called The Little Book of Luca. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Luca, The Little Book of Luca, I think. I'm gonna butcher the name, I'm sorry, by Meek Wiking, and it's a Danish author, and it's about the Danish culture. And basically I was taking a course about kind of the psychology of happiness and aging through the Danish lens, and so this book was kind of perfect, and I read it along with class. Like, I wasn't required for class, but it fit really well with my course, so it was great to read that. I read it over just like a couple of months. I would read a couple pages a night. Very visual, just very interesting. and I saw it while I was in Denmark and really wanted to buy it, but I had self-control. This author also has other books, and I'm pretty sure he's like the founder or the owner or something of the Institute of Happiness there, so very cool. If I got any of that wrong, I will correct myself in the editing stage, but very cool person. I follow them on Instagram, so slay. The 6th book I read this year was also for class, and it's called The Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. The note that I put is that it was very interestingly written. I gave it 3 stars. I had never really read anything like that before. It's kind of a blur now, but I do remember being like, wow, this is written so cool. The 7th book I read is As You Like It by Shakespeare. This is probably my favorite Shakespeare play. I just really like the characters in this play. I particularly like Rosalind. I think I wrote a couple essays on Rosalind. I think she's so interesting and so dynamic, and is kind of a great like character to talk about in modern day as well. I just really like Rosalind. I think she's written in a very interesting way. So if you're gonna read any Shakespeare play, As You Like It is the one to read, because and Romeo and Juliet of course, but I really liked As You Like It. The 8th book I read was called Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. I'm pretty sure this was recommended by maybe my roommate, I think. Very fun, very cool read if you haven't read it. Sometimes I just really like super chill books that I can just read and have a good time with, so it was a nice little read in between all of these like super heavy Shakespeare things that I was reading for class. The 9th book I read is Clay's Quilt by Silas House. I had been wanting to read a Silas House book for a while, ever since I went on a trip and he was like a guest author, and he read some excerpts from Clay's Quilt, and so I finally snagged it from the library and read it and really enjoyed it. This next book, my 10th book of the year, I gave 4 stars, and I will never forget reading this book. I was on spring break. I was going on a service trip to New Orleans, which I have a video on, I'm pretty sure, and we were in this like big 12-passenger van, and so everyone was kind of just chilling, and I was finishing up this book, and it's called One Italian Summer. I need to give it a reread, and it is like the most precious mother-daughter story ever. It is so touching, so wonderful. The imagery is crazy. If I'm gonna recommend another book on this list, it would be A Special Place for Women, As You Like It by Shakespeare, and One Italian Summer, because One Italian Summer is incredible. My 11th book was Othello by Shakespeare. My 12th book was called White Blood, and that one was also for class. Same with Othello. And also for class I read Hamlet. My 14th book of the year was recommended by one of my mentors, and it's called The Go-Giver by Berg and Mann. I read this book in April, and I remember it having really good points and things that just like stuck out to me. It's kind of a self-help style book. The 15th book I read was The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I gave this book 3 stars. I read it in April, and the note I have on it is sometimes confusing but perfect ending, so slay. The 16th book I read is called Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman, which is a book I had been wanting to read for a while. I read it in April, and I gave it 4 stars. My note for this book says, quote, Gay Parker Horowitz, unquote, sobs. So I did really enjoy this book. I thought it was very nice. In May, I read Maybe Another Life by TJR. I love like books about fate, so I really enjoyed Taylor Jenkins Reid's book. I really like her as an author as well, but like books about fate, I just eat them up. So I enjoyed this one for sure. The 18th book I read is called The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. Again, if I'm butchering any author's names, I'm very sorry. I read this one in May. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I said, I am Sarah. So I don't really know what that means, but apparently I'm her. Of course, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. She's my favorite author, her and Jenny Han, and my favorite book of all time is People We Meet on Vacation. But I have to say, I loved the concept of Happy Place. The plot line was just not like, I think I built it up too much in my head, which is my own fault. I really just like the concept of Happy Place, and I recommend reading it, obviously, if you like Emily Henry, because Emily Henry never misses. But I was expecting a little bit more from this book. I also just really love People We Meet on Vacation, so I think I just like compare every Emily Henry book to People We Meet on Vacation, which is very unfair of me. But she slays. Cannot wait for the new book I'm going to be reading, obviously. This next book I read in the summer during my summer job. I read a lot of books during my summer job, but it is called Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This is one of my favorite books of the year, I think. I would also put this on the ones that I recommend. I just really enjoyed this book. It's kind of different than anything I had been reading at the time. Like I was reading a lot of like romance and just like super laid back books, but this book actually really makes you think and is very insightful and very contemporary, so highly recommend. The 21st book I read this year is called Summer People by Ellen Hilderbrand. Every summer I just usually grab a random Ellen Hilderbrand book to read. This one I don't even know if I really technically finished it. I think I started skimming a lot of it. It was just not my cup of tea, but I really do like a lot of other books by her. I read The Perfect Couple a couple summers ago, and I still think about that book, but it has a different kind of mystery element that I think I really liked, and I think she does mystery really well. But Summer People was just like, I was just not vibing with it. So, but I love Ellen Hilderbrand's books usually for the summer. I haven't read the new one that just came out, but usually pretty chill summer reads. Then I read The Mothership, guys, the annual reread of the Summer I Turned Pretty series. I reread these every summer, and I read these while I was at my summer job in the midst of season 2 glory. These were my 22nd, 23rd, and 24th reads of the year. Okay, then we have come to August. So the summer reads are over. It is back to school mode. For the class that I was taking in the fall, we read a lot of books about like, basically the class was about studying the effects that like books and movies and things had on culture 19th and 20th century. And so we did like books related to like the Industrial Revolution, World War II, the Cold War, like things like that. And so we started off the year with Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I had actually never read before. So this was a good read. I bought this one because it was pretty cheap. Some of the other books I got from the library, but I think this one was like $5, so. And then I did a reread of my favorite book ever, which is People We Meet on Vacation by Miss Emily Henry. I'm gonna give this 5 stars every time. Like, I just love it. I just love it. And then for class, I read The Time Machine on the Genealogy of Morals, The Future of an Illusion. And then also for class, I read a book that I probably wrote most of my essays for the class on. It's a book that I really want to own and I need to buy. It is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. If you have not read A Room of One's Own, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Like every 5 seconds, I was like, oh yes, thank you, Virginia Woolf. Very just like, I don't know, I just need to have it on my shelf. So highly recommend A Room of One's Own. And then also a book I did not own prior to Christmas, but I read Catching Fire, which is the best Hunger Games movie. I mean, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is up there, but the OG movies, the Catching Fire, honestly is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. But the book was so good, so good. Almost done, went down to the final 6 books of the year. So in class, I also read Night by Elie Wiesel. The 33rd book I read this year was Things Fall Apart, also for class. 34th book of the year I could talk about forever. So it is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Atherton, which I had on hold at the library for probably a couple of weeks, and it finally came in. And I read it, and I was like getting halfway through, and I was like, man, this book is really overhyped. Like I just was not feeling it. And then the last like 40-50 pages, I was just sobbing. Like I sat in my bed and finished the last 40-50 or so pages in one sitting and was just crying every page. Like I was like, oh, that's why this book is so good. So I love Everything I Know About Love, and it's a book that I see myself reading again when I'm 25, again when I'm 30, again when I'm 35, like different stages of my life. And if you are in college, right post-grad, about to enter college, just read it. If you're like literally a woman of any age, please read this book. It's so good. And then simultaneously, I was also reading Monster, A Fan's Dilemma. My 36th book of the year, I gave 4.5 stars. My notes on it say, just wow. I raved about this book during my Vlogmas, but it's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Fantastic. Like, incredibly well done. Oh my gosh. Please read it. It's incredible. And then my final book of the year, unless I read something in the next week, but probably not. My final book of the year, this one is from the library. I have not returned it yet, but every December I like to have a little Christmas read, and so as soon as I finished Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is a very, like, extremely good, but it's a very deep, like, conceptual, lots of stuff is happening kind of book, and I was like, I just need a Christmas read. So I hit up the Christmas shelf at the library, and I came across this cute little cover, and I was like, yeah, judge books by their covers. Let me get this one. It's called Once Upon a December. Such a good winter read. Gave it 3.5 stars. It's cute. I would reread it. But if you need a little good Christmassy, wintry, seasonal read, I recommend. Well, those are all the books I read this year. I read more than last year, which is a plus, and then my goal is to read more next year than I did this year. So thank you all for watching. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned and you liked them or didn't like them, leave me a comment. Thanks everyone, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.